You may not remember this, but maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, we sparred over at Syndicate, and people talk about your power all the time, and I'm like, you don't really know because Khalil Rountree hit me right between the eyes so hard, I went cross-eyed for a minute. I didn't even know you could go cross-eyed from getting hit in the head, but I want to know, when did you first realize that you had this kind of power? Was it in a street fight? Was it in the gym? Was it an actual fight?
I think it was about within the first couple of months of getting into MMA. I trained at Vanderlei Silva's gym when he was still fighting in the UFC. And there we would spar really, really hard. That was just like 2 or 3 times a week. It was just like hard sparring. And it was tough. So I guess it got to a point where like I was going with guys who were already professionals and my back was kind of against the wall. And so I just would like swing big. And then that was the first time that I actually started to realize like, oh, okay, I have power. And then, yeah, so it was within the first few months of me training, yeah.
Man, that's crazy. I was surprised, I was looking at your social media. You're kind of a big metalhead. You're into like a lot of hardcore and metal.
Yeah, that was my upbringing before fighting, all that stuff. That was my, like, hardcore shows were my place of refuge. And growing up, I played multiple instruments. I played a lot of guitar, played a lot of bass. And so metal was kind of like my go-to because it was the most complex and fast. And it felt like trying to figure out like an algorithm to me, you know what I mean? So I would just kind of sit in my room and try to learn songs, and then by the time I'm, done practicing, if I could even get, 2 or 3 riffs down, I felt good about myself because it's really hard to play.
It is. It's some of the hardest. People don't really appreciate how difficult it is, how much overhead it goes. I used to be a metal singer. We could get
Nice.
Matt Brown. We could get a band going.
You kind of got the James Hetfield look going.
It's a perfect transition too from like metal to MMA. A lot goes hand in hand. What do you have a walkout song planned?
Yeah, but it's not metal.
Oh, surprisingly. Do we have to wait, or can you tell us what it is? Let's just wait.
Come on, yeah, let's wait.
Let's just wait and see what happens.
It was almost a metal song. There was a couple of metal songs like, on the list. Actually, one that like a song that I was feeling during camp a lot was the day that never comes by Metallica. For some reason, like it felt good, but that won't be the song.
I'm going to see him next week with Pantera in Dallas at Cowboy Stadium, the Mecca.
Honestly, I couldn't think of a more like chaotic environment to see them.
Right. So interesting about your opponent. He's coming down from being real heavy, and I know that it's a big part of your story how you went from being like overweight and down about that and gotten in really good shape. Did you know that about him, and have you kind of like seen the kind of transition that he's made to come down in weight? It's pretty drastic.
Yeah, not a lot. I did like lightly see it, but I mean, yeah, I know the struggle, and it's amazing. You know what I mean? Like that just makes us tough guys. You know what I mean? And focused guys. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, last thing I wanted to ask you about this matchup is what was the conversation like when you were approached with it? Because, I mean, every fight is dangerous. Every fight is scary, obviously. But, I mean, here's a guy who really has nothing to lose. You're in the top 15 now, and you're basically, like, instead of saying, like, what a lot of people would say, well, no, I'm going to try to fight somebody higher up the rankings because I worked a long time to get here. But instead, you're going to give him that opportunity to possibly get into the rankings at the expense of whereas he has really nothing to lose.
Yeah. The conversation was kind of what you mentioned. I was talking to the matchmakers and asking I had just gotten into the rankings, and I was preparing for someone within, the top 15, and that's what I was asking for. Some of the guys were injured. Some of the guys were already booked. I guess my only option was to sit the bench until someone opened up, if that's what I wanted. Like if you want somebody in the top 15, don't got anybody right now, so don't know when I can book you. You know what I mean? Like that was kind of the conversation, which at first I was like, okay, whatever, I'll wait around. But not too long after the offer of Daukaus came up, and I took a little bit of time to contemplate it, right? Because it was, in a way, completely opposite of what I was asking for. But I guess something that was also brought to my attention was like, okay, he's not ranked in the light heavyweight division, but he's ranked in the heavyweight division. So if you're looking for somebody ranked, there you go, you got it, So, yeah, it wasn't an easy decision, It definitely took some, contemplation and film study, things like that. And finally came to the decision of, I'm here to fight the best. I want to and believe that I can be a contender. And now it's just a matter of, handling the challenges in front of me. So if I'm here to fight the best and they give me Chris Daukaus, he's a UFC fighter, he's ranked heavyweight, he's great. Okay, cool. This is, in a way, also what I asked for. So, yeah.
Thank you, Khalil.
No problem.
Hey, Khalil.
Yo.
How bummed were you that the fight got pushed off of UFC Canada?
On a scale of what?
On a scale of like 1 to 50.
1 to 50? 20. Yeah. It was... I didn't necessarily feel bummed. I mean, there was some frustration, it was like, dang, like I'm already on weight. I was already prepared to go out and fight in front of a Vancouver crowd. In my mind, I was thinking about how beautiful Vancouver was going to be, things like that. But I also just had this feeling of, okay, it's whatever. And I'll just continue to work until, the rescheduled date. So I felt more like that than, like bummed, and any like negative feelings that could have crept in. I was just like, all right, if that's what it is, then that's what it is.
Was there a thought of getting a new opponent, or was the mindset like you already trained so far, invested so much, like you want to fight Chris?
There were a couple of options of guys who weren't even signed to the UFC yet. And because the fight was in Vancouver, there would have also potentially been issues with visa. And it's pretty tough to try to get two guys from foreign countries to get visa approvals in 7 days. You know what I mean? So UFC was obviously willing to do it. They were going to do anything they could to make sure that if I wanted to fight, then they'd help make it happen. But it really just didn't make sense, from what I saw and what, the names that they gave. I don't remember off the top of my head, but like two killers, from circuits, like on the other side of the world, and they're just, and you know what I mean, on like 11 and 12 fight win streaks. And I'm just like, man, I've been in a position before, for instance, with like Johnny Walker, like I had just beat Gokhan Saki, and then they're like, all right, fight Johnny Walker. No one knew that was Johnny Walker's debut. You know what I mean? So we're looking at like tape stuff from like his regional fights, and we're just like, okay. And then little do you know, like Johnny Walker shows up and he's 6'6" doing backflips, and the guy's a killer. You know what I mean? So I was like, and yeah, at the time, nobody knew who he was until he knocked me out. So it was like, I don't want to be in that position again. I don't want to take that chance. So, like, I'm okay with just, keeping the same opponent and rescheduling.
The matchup itself, like, do you just see it as two knockouters kind of going at it and whoever lands first? Or do you think it's a little bit more complex than that?
It's definitely more complex than that. Yeah, I don't expect, just two knockout artists going in there trying to knock each other out. No, I don't expect that at all. I don't see that.
Do you see him as more dangerous because his back is fully against the wall, he loses to you, he loses his job. Like, does that come into play at all?
Yeah, I think that, it's definitely something to consider, right? Like, it's a tough position to be in. And yeah, it's like, if you really want it and this is the position that you're in, then you got to go out there and you got to take it. So yeah, it's a tough position to be in. And it's something that I knew would be there upon accepting this fight.
You finally got into UFC 4.
Finally, right?
You were asking for that. How's that feel?
It's really cool. I don't personally play a lot of video games, but I do remember when I was younger and playing UFC on Dreamcast, and also I used to play like Shaq Fu on Sega, like things like that. And when I got to be in the UFC, I always kind of imagined like, oh, it'd be cool to be in a video game. But I think the biggest thing that I think is cool is that people who are fans of me get to interact with me in a different way. You know what I'm saying? So I think it was something that's cool for me as far as just like bucket list, but it's also really cool for the fans to be able to kind of like tap into my character and fight. So yeah, it's good.
Finally, what's the best album and best movie you've seen this year?
Best album, best movie I've seen this year. Oh man. Okay. Oh my goodness. Honestly, like right now I can't even answer that question. I don't even remember the last movie that I saw. I mean, Sound of Freedom was good, right? That was deep. It was like meaningful. I thought that was really cool. I think that was the last movie that I saw in theaters, and it was pretty impactful. There's nothing really right now that's popping up, so I'll give it to that. And then as far as albums go, I'd say right now one of the new breakout artists that I'm listening to that I like a lot. His name is Black Sharif. He's out of Ghana. And I love the guy. Definitely like new sound, starting to make waves here in the U.S. and internationally. So those two people definitely not even in the same boat. Like that movie and Black Sharif don't even go together. But yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
No problem.
Khalil over here. I know you're focused on Chris Daukaus and the task ahead on Saturday night. But I know you just mentioned that you would have liked to fight someone ranked in your division. From what you can remember, were there any names that really sparked interest in you to fight?
No, there's never really a name. You know what I mean? Like, I think everybody is pretty familiar with the names that are in the top 15. And yeah, for me, it wasn't necessarily a name thing. I was more looking for the opportunity to fight someone whose number was higher than mine. You know what I mean? And I would have been okay with anybody. Anybody who had a higher number. So, yeah, it wasn't like I want this guy specifically. It was just like I want to fight someone with a higher number, and willing to just like shake the bucket, shake the hat and draw and be like, okay, cool. Let's get to work.
Awesome. And music has been brought up a couple of times just now. As a professional athlete, how important is music in your preparation for a fight like this?
I think it's very important. Music has always been like my outlet, and just kind of like a refuge in a way. Like as a child, my thing was literally hanging out in my room and discovering new music. And then when like Napster and LimeWire and all that stuff came out, I was like searching for things, people were burning CDs, and that's how I started to kind of finally, dig for music, and then going to the record store. So I would take something home and just listen to it and see how it affects me. So, still to this day, that's something that I do. I'll sometimes spend hours on Spotify just, clicking something that I like, and then an artist that's related, and then going through their thing, and by the end of the night, I'm in a whole different genre from a whole different country and loving it.
Awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just got one question, bro. I know it was a little bit ago now, but the fight against Modestas Bukauskas, obviously it was a bad injury to his knee.
Yeah.
Is it kind of cool to see that he's turned it around because he did recover from it and now he went on to be the Cage Warriors champ? I think he got called up on short notice to fight Tyson Pedro. He's now 2-0 in the UFC. So I know there's still there's always going to be that connection with that fight between you guys. So is it cool to see that he has recovered and
100%.
turned it around?
100%. It's like, it's really cool, man. And without saying too much, I think it's amazing. Yeah, like, with my whole heart, I think it's really fucking cool. Thanks, guys.